Having some sort of strategic focus to me is very important. I think that you have to certainly understand your market, but you've got to become a specialist. You've got to add value. You've got to, when have long-term clients, they rely on you for your expertise.
NAI Global presents How's Biz?
Greetings. Welcome to the NAI Global How's Biz podcast. I'm Gary Marsh. Today's guest we're happy to have from Chicago, Dan Leahy. He's with NAI Hiffman, and I believe you've had most, if not all, of your commercial real estate career with NAI Hiffman. Is that correct, Dan?
It is. It is.
So that was one of the questions I had was, is commercial real estate your only career, or were you doing something prior?
Yeah, no, after college, I went into the management consulting world, and I did that for a few years. And it was the traveling, leaving Sundays, coming back Friday nights all over the country. Great experience, but I didn't enjoy the travel, and I was more on the financial software side of the world. And I just saw that not as a long-term career for me. So I actually cold called Dennis Hiffman and asked him if he would take a meeting with me and sit down with me and talk to me about real estate, because real estate had always intrigued me. Denny was nice enough to take my call and invited me to the office. And, what I thought was going to be a 15-minute to 30-minute meeting turned into a 2-hour meeting. And Denny then, introduced me to a young broker who was in the industrial group named Gerard Keating. And Gerard was looking for a young junior broker, and Gerard took a chance on me and hired me back in 1996. And I've stayed there ever since, and always been in the industrial world. Denny could have put me in office retail, but I was very fortunate to get into the industrial world.
Oh, well, this is really great because, and this probably from your years in the industry, most of, when I say us, I'm not a broker, but most of our colleagues in the industry didn't necessarily have the intention of a career in commercial real estate. Some came from selling Xerox machines, whatnot, a lot of accidental careers that turned out quite well, whereas yours was quite intentional. So that's a little bit of a contrast right there. The other is your background, you must be smart, or because that's a different background. That's not, again, common quote salesperson's background to get into the industry. So how did your management consulting business and brief career, I presume it was under 10 years, how has that served you well in this line of work?
Yeah, I'm a very focused person, and Gerard, who was an outstanding mentor, was a huge big picture, and he was what I would call all over the place. And Gerard and I actually, when he brought me in, we sat in the same office for our entire careers together. And he was running 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I was just trying to absorb as much as I could. But through that process, I learned that I needed to focus, and that's just the way my brain works. I'm very strategic, very targeted, needed to focus on something. And with that, I started focusing on the logistics field in the late 90s. And that kind of brought me into the transportation side of the business, and really a focus of attending, actually on my own, attending a lot of conferences, attending a lot of educational classes, just getting myself caught up to speed with regards to at the time, it was the third party warehousing world. And it's been a great niche for me, and it helped me stay focused. And I focused in that industry. It was at the time in the late 90s, around 2000, there were only probably 2 brokers that were, even attending any of these shows or educational classes. And I was there by myself, and I was just, it was a great networking opportunity, and it was great for me to learn.
Wow, that's so you were really in what we would consider the nascent days of logistics. I mean, back then, I would think most quote industrial brokers, hard to use the word, much less were involved in the sector, because it really is different than just warehousing. I mean, back in the day, we used to call you guys the dirt dogs, right?
Yeah.
And I had a job with a publicly traded company that will go unmentioned, but the manager I used to support, I had multiple offices and markets that I supported. He was in Phoenix, and he used to say you could tell the difference between the sales meetings at 7 a.m. The capital markets guys brought in croissants, the the office guys bagels, and the industrial guys donuts.
Yeah.
So you were part of that evolution from changing that, so to speak.
Like I like to tell a lot of people, we're docs indoors, keep it simple. I tell people that we hit a lot of singles and doubles, but we score a lot of runs. So it's been a great business for me. I thoroughly enjoy it. Enjoy the people that I work with, enjoy the clients, I enjoy the partners that we have, and it's been great. Very fortunate.
I'm sure you feel grateful and fortunate to be happy in your career. Which, speaking of which, before we forget, audience, one of the reasons Dan is a guest today, he's a top 10 producer from last year for the NAI Global platform. So that's a significant accomplishment when you think we have 5,000 professionals in some 300 some odd markets around the world. So congratulations on that. That's a worthy accomplishment. It's probably not your first time, certainly not in the big hitters circle, if not a top 10. Um, and one of the things that struck me on your webpage, and this is not uncommon for the industry, you declare you're very competitive. You love what you do. You love the hunt. You love problem solving, which we now know explains your management background. That's where that partly comes from. And you love adding value to your clients and your projects. The competitiveness, is that something that you grew up with, or you were a high school wrestler or something like that?
Yeah, I was always in sports. Obviously, I play golf, basketball, and baseball. And I think the competitive side came from really golf, and just enjoy the game. And again, I've always been competitive with regards to whatever sport it is and whatever I'm involved with.
Well, this again is it's all sort of adding up, if you will. That's of the sports, and I played a lot of golf in my life. It's one of the more cerebral ones. You have to concentrate like crazy when you address your ball, and then kind of forget about it until the next time you address a ball. The other thing we wanted to ask you or talk about a little bit, you were a founding member of the NEI Global Industrial and Logistics Council, and that was some years ago now, and you sort of moved on, but your protege, so you had a mentor, and then you became a mentee, and your mentee has been Adam Roth, who's been a great contributor to that group. So when did you bring Adam on?
Yeah, so Adam has been a great partner. Actually, I met Adam in the early 2000s at a logistics conference. At the time, he was working for JB Hunt Logistics and was in the transportation field and was looking to make a change. And with my focus on the transportation real estate side of the business, it was just a natural fit. So he came along back in the early 2000s, and like Gerard Keating and I did together, Adam and I, since day one, sit in the same office. And he's been great to work with.
Oh, wonderful. We've heard this, over the years. You're always learning by teaching. What are some of the things you've learned from being on the instructor side, so to speak, versus on the learning curve?
Yeah, you know what? I think for me, it was always becoming a specialist, and it was always making sure that you were an expert in something, and whatever that was, you really you got yourself educated, you invested in yourself, and you focused within that. For me, it was the transportation real estate, and I think I just immersed myself in that industry, and it's actually from a career perspective, it's obviously evolved now where I think, everybody puts a little bit their logistics professor or their logistics professional after their name. I'm not sure they really are, but having some sort of strategic focus to me is very important. I think that you have to certainly understand your market, but you've got to become a specialist. You've got to add value. You've got to when you have long-term clients, they rely on you for your expertise. So as I talk to the young guys in our office, I try to tell them, one, all you have in this business is your time and your reputation. and you have to preserve both of those. And how you use your time is critical. I think I've been better than most in using my time well and being able to sort out opportunities, being able to sort out customers that value your time as well. And, you know, you get to a certain point in your career where you just turn down certain customers and you turn down certain opportunities. And, I'm very blessed to be able to do that. But again, if someone doesn't value your time, I think you have to really take a step back and say, is it worth putting in the energies if they're not going to value my time? And again, I take a look at this business as an advisor to my customers and to my clients and to my friends, and it's a long-term approach. Again, I'm not chasing the check. I'm out there from a long-term perspective. There's been a lot of transactions that I've been involved in where I waive fees, and I've just said, you know what, guys, this is a long-term relationship we're creating here, and that's where if you look at my customers, and if again, I go back every year and I look at the transaction that I've done and who I've done them with. I would tell you 80+% of my transactions are repeat clients, and they're long-term relationships I've had, and it's been great. And these are when I call them clients, these are people that have turned into friends, that have turned into relationships that are outside of the real estate world, and that's the beautiful thing about our business.
That is a wonderful thing, and for young brokers getting into it, and maybe even just young in your career, and another topic related, and the relationship thing. It's really a cliche almost with our industry, but you speak and walk the truth, because especially again for early career brokers that are maybe facing their first downturn, this is tough. If you started this business 8 years ago, and here you are in your early mid 30s maybe, and we're not doing as many transactions. This is when you've got to dig down a little bit, but rely on those relationships. And the other thing you're speaking to, Dan, is your expertise. You know better than I. You get in the room with a logistics guy, some even a mid-level manager, but certainly when you get into the C-suite and the higher management, they have zero patience for you if you don't know their business. I mean, you have no credibility, right?
Absolutely. And you have to add value. You can't come in there and you can't just walk around it. You have to know what you're talking about. You have to add value in those conversations, and you have to be strategic about it. These conversations we're having aren't just always about real estate. They're about strategic, 5, 10, 15-year forecasts that are down the road. And, how are we working on network design together? And how is this going to impact other things that are going to happen in the business? So, again, it's really becoming a strategic advisor to folks. And sometimes, again, you're there for the real estate transaction, but a lot of the times you're there just as counsel on where things are trending and where things are going and how they should look at their business and maybe give consideration to where the businesses are going, and some of the impacts that are going towards the real estate side.
Yeah, right on. Again, for younger brokers, if someone ever says to you, you're in the transactional business, I think your response should be, whoa, 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 not so fast. That's just a consequence of a lot of other things that happen before we get to that stage. That's what I'm hearing from you. So give us a 60-second overview of the Chicagoland industrial market, Dan, and related, you're in the perfect market really to be in the forefront of quote logistics. I mean, Chicago obviously is the heart and soul of the Midwest. There's tons of transportation, multimodal, that comes in there. Every truck in the world passes through. Train terminals, multiple, served by probably 3 or 4 different rail lines, if not, yeah, probably about that. But then you have seaborne traffic. Your ports, we don't think about them much, but they open up to the Lawrence Seaway to the Atlantic. So you're in the heart of what has been always a dynamic place for logistics.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. I was born and raised in Chicago. So, growing up, we had all these warehouses around us within this metropolitan area. And you look at Chicago as a 60-mile by 60-mile box. And little did I know that, I'd be working in an industry that was such a dominant piece of the economy. But we're a little over 1.3 billion square feet. That's how we measure our square footage. And things are very healthy in Chicago. We've been very fortunate. The first quarter alone, we've absorbed about 8 million square feet. Our vacancy rate is still under 6%, which is historically very healthy. When you look at Chicago from a transportation infrastructure, we're very fortunate. All six Class 1 railroads land in Chicago. I've been very fortunate in my career. In the early 2000s, Centerpoint Properties took a chance on me and engaged me to represent them on their intermodal centers down in Joliet and Elwood. And at the time, it was anchored by the Burlington Northern Santa Fe, and then following that, the Union Pacific. So the BN UP Global intermodal centers. And we've been very fortunate to develop and lease about 18 million square feet around those projects. So it's a very transportation oriented market. It's the center of the country. We've got great labor, and our proximity to distribute to multi-states is second to none.
Yeah, it sure is. Again, the heart and soul of the Midwest, but like you said, it's really a national connection because of its location and the size. It's just amazing. Well, I was going to ask you about some of your listings. You just referenced Centerpoint. You've got one that's, I think, 977,000 feet listed right now.
Yeah, that's a spec building that Centerpoint developed down at the Intermodal Center. And again, the strategy there over the last 5 years is we've built bigger buildings, and it's because of the absorption of the bigger tenants within the marketplace. And we've got every retailer there that is taking advantage of the intermodal and the drayage savings, wants to locate on campus. And it's been a great project, and it's a value add project. It's not for everybody, but from a transportation perspective, we're calculating drayage rates and showing customers and showing companies the savings and educating brokers and telling them that how they can save their clients money by locating on campus versus off campus. And we've been working on that for the last almost 20 years.
That project itself.
Correct.
That's pretty big. Well, I mean, I hate to put you on the spot, but I think you can handle it. On the industrial council calls, we hear that the market for big box space, this 977,000 feet certainly qualifies, has slowed considerably. The smaller stuff is still highly in demand, and mid-size, i.e. 200 to 400,000 feet, muddling demand. If that's even remotely true, how's your traffic with that huge listing? And it sounds like it's a pretty special project, but are you getting pretty good traction and interest for it?
Yeah, again, we have good traction. I wouldn't say it's as good as it was 18 months ago. Obviously, things have slowed, but again, being on campus, being adjacent to the intermodal centers there, we offer something different than just a big box distribution center in the middle of a cornfield. And so we've got good activity. We've got a captive audience that we focus on, and I'm confident we'll have this building leased in the next few months.
Oh, good. Okay. One of the questions I was going to ask, we already discussed. Are you a soloist? Do you have a teammate? Obviously, Adam's a teammate. Do you have any other people working on your team?
Yeah, you know what? Again, Adam and I work together on the intermodal center with Centerpoint. I do a lot of work for institutional customers on the product side, and I will bring in the right teammate within our office for that project. And again, we've been very fortunate from a company standpoint to grow a very large management group, and we are the beneficiary of some great opportunities from a leasing perspective. And so I have probably worked with 15 plus different guys in the office on different listings. And that's one of the things that, I'm most proud of when I look at the deals that have transpired over the last 12 months. I look at and see who did I work on these transactions with, and it's a diverse group of guys in the office, and that's a testament to the guys that we have within the NI Hiffman brokerage organization.
And how big is the company? I know Hiffman National is a large national management group, but the Hiffman brand itself, the brokerage side, brokerage services, advisory services, how many folks are you?
Yeah, from again, NEI Hiffman National, essentially, we were 30 people when we put the company together back in 2000. Today, we've got over 260 professionals. Of that, about 80 of those are in the brokerage side of the business. and the other piece is the Hiffman National side. And Hiffman National, to its credit, has been great. We're in 27 states now. We lease and manage over 137 million square feet. It's really it's a testament to the people that we have working there. It's amazing case study as far as how we've grown and how quickly we've grown.
Well, and I have to think these two disciplines, if you will, really complement each other. When you go talk to, especially your institutional clients, they know what your story is and what your capabilities are. I can imagine that's just as helpful as can be.
Yeah, and it's great because we all interact together. It's not like management is in a different state and accounting is in a different state. When we get together for a customer, brokerage is in the room, management's in the room, accounting's in the room, asset management's in the room, and we're all in the same building. We all, collaborate together. So it's been great. And we have a lot of opportunities in front of us, and we're an alternative to some of the bigger guys out there that are doing that. So
And speaking of which,
great.
I would think you're one of the longer term tenured members of NEI Global. So, thank you for your continued support and affiliation. But also, given what you just described, Dan, I mean, I would think you could go shoulder to shoulder with those three, typically top three publicly traded firms in terms of competition. Is that am I reading this correctly in terms of Chicago?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, right on. That's a good story too for people listening that maybe aren't we have an open market somewhere and you're wondering if there's much value. Then NEI Hiffman may be our best testimonial that you can compete with the publicly traded if you build it and you have the patience and you bring on the right people. You've already we talked about the keys to your success: relationships, foremost expertise. Is there anything that we're kind of overlooking that we haven't discussed?
No, I think again, I think it's time and reputation, as I mentioned earlier. And I think time, it's all we have, right? So how you utilize your time and how you utilize your energies when you're in the office and when you're out of the office. One of the things that I tell the young guys has been super helpful for me is coming in on the weekends and working and having zero distractions and being able to just get through a lot of the nuances that we have to get through on a daily basis. And that frees me up during the week to be able to do a lot of different things and really stay focused. And again, a testament to that is my family. Again, I've been doing this a long time, and I've got a very, very supportive family, and it's tough. And I tell the younger guys, when you're just getting into this business and you don't have children yet, make sure you get into the office. Once you have those children, there's your life changes. It's a time suck, and it's for the positive. But you know what, you're going to be responsible, and you're going to want to go to their school events, you're going to want to go to their sporting events, and you're going to want to be there, and you're just not going to have the time that you have when you may be single. And then it comes back when your kids then evolve and go into college. The time comes back to you. But again, our business is 7 days a week, and it really never shuts off. And I always tell the young guys, if this isn't a part-time job, if you're working 40 hours a week, that's part-time to me. Again, this is 7 days a week, and it's and again, the money is a byproduct of the hard work, and those that are the top the top producers within AI are historically repeat top producers. And again, I think if you talk to all of them, and I'm friends with all of them, it's the case studies are pretty similar.
Well, there's nothing like I mean, you speak to a work habit, and well said, Dan. It's absolutely true. Again, for you younger guys and women listening, it's you got to put the time in. There's just no substitute for it. Actually, one of the things we always like to ask, again, even though you're a strategic advisor, we always like to hear examples of some of your recent, whether they're last year or first half of this year, first quarter of this year, transactions, or in your case, any sort of advisory work that you may have provided that hasn't led to a transaction per se, but it was super helpful to a client. So tell us a short story on either one of those, either transactional or just some great advice you recently gave a client.
Yeah, I would say earlier in this year, I had a transaction that I was very happy to complete, and it was a project that had been in the makes for the last 2 years, and it was a paper converting company, a relationship that I had created, a friend that had outgrown their facility, and it was a difficult requirement because it required a lot of power, it required rail, it required a location that served their customers, and the rail piece was very difficult, because there's not a lot of rail served opportunities within the Chicago area, direct rail served, that are, met this requirement from a size perspective. And we were able to find a building that the rail was inactive, the power was insufficient, and we were able to, with our relationships, get the rail reactivated, get the power increased, tear down a ton of mezzanine, a ton of office, to make this work for the project. And then we ended up signing a long-term lease for 300,000+ square feet for this client, who's been a great friend, and was just a great, again, it was advising them for 2 years with regards to the opportunities and to where pricing is. And again, we did this transaction when the financial markets were challenged, and there was a lot of hand holding on both the landlord and the tenant side. But it was very fulfilling to get it done. This facility will open up in the next 30 days, and I'm real happy for the family because it's a private company, and I was able to help the next generation get to a place where I know they're going to be very successful to hand this off to the next generation.
Oh, wow. So this is really becomes legacy kind of work when you're involved in projects like that. Yeah, and there was a lot of moving parts to that deal too, it sounds like.
There were.
Yeah, well, congratulations on it. What's your outlook for the rest of the year? Speaking of the financial markets, we're still in the woods, so to speak, and who knows ultimately what happens. But you have a robust market, like you said, vacancy under 6%, which is historically on the low side. So with that said, Dan, what do you think? What do you expect for the rest of this year? Clients say, I know you don't own a crystal ball, but what are you thinking for 2025 or even 2026?
Yeah, it's starting to loosen up again. It was a landlord's market for a long time. Obviously, the pendulum has swung, and we're starting to finally see some opportunities for tenants. But again, construction costs are still very high. Labor's still high. We're seeing rental rates continue to increase, although at this point they're starting to level out. We're starting to see some concessions with regards to escalations and free rent, which is good for the tenant side of the business. But you know what? We're still in a good balance here in Chicago. We're not out of balance with regards to overbuilt or oversupplied. Again, I would say that things have definitely slowed down with regards to absorption. But you used to have five guys chasing after one building. Now you might have one or two. And again, take this back 10 years, we were at 8% vacancy. We've been through this before. We'll get through this. This is the time where you just continue to add value to your customers. You continue to, educate them on where the market stands. Is now the right time to buy a building? Potentially yes, but potentially no, because right now some people still have 21, 22 pricing in their minds. And until they, come around to, 24, 25 pricing, we've still got a little bit of a spread there. So, I think this market's going to be, a little bit of a slower second half. But then I really think 25 is going to come back up, the pent up demand with regards to where we're seeing from a transportation standpoint, we're seeing from an inventory standpoint. I think we're in a healthy position.
Oh, that's good. The one thing that Adam says often on these the industrial council calls is one of your strategic advantages is water and power. You have lots of it compared to other places in America, and we're all kind of optimistic and for the right reasons about nearshoring and reshoring and manufacturing picking up, notwithstanding its challenges, namely the talented labor you need for more manufacturing, especially high-tech manufacturing. But is there anything specific that you can think of that is either on the horizon, i.e. with a company perhaps looking at the Chicagoland market because of your water and power?
Yeah, I think power again is critical right now, and in getting power and increasing power is a challenge. And it's just a time delay, and it's expensive. And we've got a lot of buildings with a lot of good infrastructure that can take advantage of the Lake Michigan water, and that can take advantage of the abundant power that we have here. And we're already starting to see the manufacturing deals pick up. And that's again the near shoring side. I think you're going to see Chicago be a beneficiary of that.
Excellent. Well, we think of nearshoring, and well, you're close to the Canadian border. People sometimes forget Canada manufactures a lot of automobiles, and there's a ton of trade between the borders up north. But I think most of us tend to think of nearshoring as with our friends and neighbors to the south, i.e. Mexico, and America's long shared border with our that country. But really, again, because the water and power, a lot of it's going to gravitate north to other markets, and you said it, you're going to be one of the beneficiaries. So everyone should remember that. Well, Dan, it's been wonderful speaking with you. I'm sure we can talk about the market for a long time, but we like to keep the podcast a little on the tight side. Folks, we've been speaking with Dan Leahy. He's an executive vice president of NEI Hiffman in Chicago. If you ever need any help in that marketplace, I think you know who to call, not to shortchange your colleagues. So, Dan, thank you for your time and especially your expertise today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for tuning in to How's Biz, presented by NAI Global. Review, share, subscribe, and keep an eye out for the next episode.